Hello and welcome to Dad Stuff. So we've been having some trouble with our Nespresso coffee machine. The coffee machine is working well, it's still making good coffee, it's all functioning, but we've been finding that when we come down to the coffee machine in the morning and we go to make our usual brew, we're finding that there is a puddle of clear water underneath the machine and we need to try to get that fixed. So the first thing I did to help identify the problem was I lifted up the coffee machine and I put it on some blocks. So the small blocks went under the machine like this, and some kitchen paper went under the machine, and then we left it. And what I discovered from that was the location of where the drip was. So it helped me to identify which part of the machine to look at. So let's get into how we go about fixing the Nespress Vertuo coffee machine. The very first thing you need to do before we do anything to take any of the panels off is we need to have it plugged in, switched on, and open the lid and then unplug. So the next steps are totally safe. The machine is unplugged. Now the machine is unplugged, let's get into taking it apart so we can fix this water leak. First of all, remove the drip tray. Remove the capsule bin. I'm taking off those wooden blocks and I'm going to tip the machine over so I can get to this is the back of it where the capsule pod was. So I'm going to use a Torx 10 screwdriver bit and I'm going to unscrew the only screw that you can access on the product. So that's Torx 10, and that doesn't seem to do much. So what we need to do is we need to be able to get a little pry bar in there to remove. I'm going to remove, as I look at the machine from the front, I'm going to remove the right hand panel first. So to do that, I need to get a small pry bar in. Now I'm going to use a palette knife. I'm going to just slip that down and under that first panel. You can see that it's just raised it. Now I don't want to scratch this, so I'm being very careful. What I'm using now is a plastic spatula. I'm putting that underneath that panel. I'll take it out. I've slid that as far down as I can. So hopefully that is now going to be free of this panel. So to get it off, it needs to go about 10 millimeters that way. So I'm going to try to push. That's not working well, so I'm going to try to get in there with my palette knife. Just going to give that a little lever. There it goes. So that's lifted about 10 millimeters up, and we'll take off that panel. Then we're going to turn it over. Now we need to do the same on the other panel. This one, again, we just need to, I'm going to get my little spatula into there, my plastic spatula, and push up the other panel. Okay, now let's have a look. So on the front we've got a panel which easily comes off now. Right, now at this point I think I need to close the lid of the machine. So for this, being very careful because now we've got some exposed electrical wiring, I'm going to plug it in and then lower the lid So I'm just going to close the lid, unplug it. Now I want to have a look at the underside. So I need to be able to take this panel off here, the one which has got the Nespress Vertuo Plus label. So I can see there's 4 clips. So I've got a small clip here which I push in. So if I can push in that small clip with a screwdriver, and then I'll try to pry that one down, and then here we've got another small clip, so I'm just keeping my finger there to keep some tension on that. So now I've got a clip here, there's a little plastic arrow pointing at it. I'm just going to lift off there, I'm going to turn it over and repeat. So I've got the plastic arrow there and a small push there. Almost there. This is something where you need lots of hands. Okay. I think the other side has just clipped itself back on. Let's just remove. Good. Okay. Carefully put that aside. Right. What have we got here then? So this is the pump, which is being able to, that's the sort of buzzing that you can hear when it's brewing up your coffee. It puts the water through at pressure. This pipe here, this black pipe, comes from the water tank into this device and out. Now the tissue paper that I put underneath it revealed that this is where the leak is coming from. Something to do with this arrangement here. So this little device here, if I just pop that up, you can see that it's a movement sensor. It's a water movement sensor. So it's got a sensor which plugs into it here. That just clicks into place there. And we've got water in and water out. So the machine must know if it runs out of water. This must tell the heating element and the pump to stop because you've run out of water. So this is where my leak is. Now I can see that these pipes, they push on fairly easily, and it could well be that these have expanded and lost their fitting. It might not be a very good fit on there anymore. It does feel a little bit loose, and perhaps under pressure it's forcing the water out. This one exactly the same. It feels okay, but maybe it's a bit loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some cable ties around these to see if that can solve the problem. So I've got a small cable tie. I'm going to pass the cable tie around the tube. These are the smallest cable ties that I could find. I'm going to pass it around there and give it a really good tighten. So I'm going to pull that tightly on, and then I'm going to snip off the cable tie. Okay, let's do that again on the next one. So a second cable tie. Going to pass it around the tube. And pull that nice and tight. So I've got some pliers. Okay, and then side cutters to snip off. Right, now I need to reassemble. So the water sensor fits underneath this, so it goes with this bends up to allow it to go under. I need to locate the holes in. Before I do that, I'm making sure that the sensor is plugged in with a click. That's it. Bit fiddly. And then this needs to relocate. Okay, now with the 2 cable ties put back onto the water sensor, I just need to make sure that that water sensor is sitting in the right position. Just popped out of there. Okay, so now let's get it put back together. So the first job is to open this top lid on the machine. So I'm going to momentarily plug it in, lift up the lid mechanism, and then unplug it. You don't want to do this with any power. The next panel to go back on is the base. So the base was put on with those 4 clips, and so it should be a simple process of aligning and just giving those a little squeeze. Next, we're going to put on the panel which goes in front of where the coffee is dispensed. So that simply locates and just sits there. That's held in place by the next panels. Now I'm going to stand the machine up and let's look at which panel is going to go in next. So we're doing it in reverse order. So the next panel to go back on is the left hand side as we look at it. So if you remember, it took 10 millimeters of being lifted up to get it off. Well, to get it back on, it's the opposite. So I need to align the panel, get the panel into the right place, and then if you feel it's in the right place, then it's going to be a push downwards. Okay, that seems to have popped on. Okay, so the left panel is in place. Now let's put the right panel on. So there's one little tab just at the edge there. You need to make sure is aligned. So remember, it's 10 millimeters down into position. Before I do that final push, I need to make sure that the panel is sitting correctly at the bottom. Okay, so it's a squeeze. And then a push down. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to put the screw back in place. So the small screw with the T10 screwdriver bit goes back in place. Next, make sure the cable is coming out of the right hole. Next, I'm going to reinstall the wastebasket, and then let's put the water container back on. Let's reinstall the drip tray and let's plug it in. And I think it's time to give it a test. So, my favourite coffee, my favourite coffee this week is Intensio. Let's just make sure everything is still working as it should. Mug. And will we get the usual whirs? Let it heat up. It's a good sound. A couple of bubbles have appeared out of the water infill where I think it's refilled itself and where I was messing around with it. And there you have it. So hopefully that fix will work. It's relatively fiddly, but it is doable. Please don't throw away things which could be repaired. It's better for the planet if we can repair rather than throw things away. This coffee machine is now 3 years old and it must have made a few thousand cups of coffee, and each cup of coffee still comes out as good as the first day we used it. Thanks for watching Dad Stuff. Don't forget, like and subscribe.